snow. Ice. Freezing temperatures. I love all of those things. I love a proper winter where we get snow and ice. The sad news is I live in the southeast of England in the UK and we rarely get that type of weather. At the moment it's February and we've got clear blue skies and warm temperatures. What I've done for many years is I head at least once every winter off to somewhere where it's a little bit colder, and I'll normally go to Wales, up to Snowdonia or Brecon Beacons to get my cold time, to get my fix of snow. And I've done this for many years, and back in my late teens, early 20s, I used to go with a mate called Steve. We went to Dartmoor, we went up to Torridon in northwest Scotland, and we walked up a mountain and dug a snow hole, and we lived in it for a few days, and we did ice climbing and all of those great things. As time moved on, I went off to pursue a career as a chef, and Steve went off to work at various outdoor centres, and over the years we lost touch. Well, until end of last year, when he's now living and working in the US, and he lectures on outdoor living skills, and he was doing some preparations for a course that he's running this year, and he was looking at woolen clothing and doing some research, and he found me on the YouTube channel talking about woolen clothing. So we've been talking the last few weeks, just catching up really. Last week he happened to say that he was thinking about putting his skis on just to get down to his mailbox, because obviously winters in North America are an awful lot harsher than they are here in southern England. And that got me thinking, an awful lot of you guys are based in North America or Northern Europe, where you get proper winters. So in this video we're going to look at a little project that you guys can have a go at making that would be great for a proper winter. And that project is these, a set of winter duffel mitts. Easy to make, very useful for those cold winter temperatures. Now I've made a few projects up recently, obviously my woolen bush shirt, I've also made up a day sack, and I tend to keep a lot of those little bits and pieces of fabric that you have left over for a useful project, and this is one of those useful projects. It uses up all those little bits of scrap material. Now I've made up this mitt pattern a few times over the years. The original idea came from a guy called John Fenner, and John Fenner wrote a fantastic book years ago on how to make your own outdoor equipment, and that sort of got me started on making gear. Sadly the book is no longer in print, but he does still have a PDF document that he can send out to people. And if you go onto the Bushcraft forum, Bushcraft UK, go onto the Makers Market and look up John Fenner, I'll put his name on the course below, and he'll send you out a really good PDF document which shows you how to make lots and lots of different items out of fleece materials. This particular one I've slightly simplified the design, and I've also made it a little bit more bushcraft friendly in that instead of using fleece we're going to use wool blanket, and obviously that has a couple of benefits. Number one, it's a natural fibre, but number two, it also makes it quite handy to use around a fire. So these snow mitts can also double up as gloves for handling stuff around the fire, mug handles and pan handles that might be a little bit hot. Equipment wise, all you're going to need is a domestic sewing machine, some fairly heavy duty needles like a jeans needle a size 18, a pair of scissors and some pins. Here's a list of the materials and the sundry items that you're going to need too. Now the first job you're going to need to do is make a pattern. So you're going to take your marker pen and your sheet of corrugated card, and your corrugated card wants to be about a hand span wide and from your fingertip to your elbow in length. Lay your hand with your fingers together on top, with your fingers about an inch or so back from the top edge of the card, and draw around it with about a good inch to an inch and a half gap all the way around the outside of the profile of your arm and your hand. With that done, cut out that shape. Then take 3 sheets of newspaper, lay them one on top of the other, place your cardboard pattern on top of that and draw around it. Once you've done that, cut out your pattern and you should have left 3 identical newspaper patterns. So next you're going to take 2 of those pieces, and what you're going to do is you're going to place your hand onto it, and then with your felt pen you're going to mark where your thumb joins the rest of your hand, and you're going to put 2 marks, one on the inside, one on the outside. Once you've done that, take a ruler and just draw a line across your pattern to mark where that point is. About an inch back from there, then draw another line. So you've got 2 parallel lines running across your pattern. With that done, what you're then going to do is cut that piece out. So what you now have is your thumb section and your inner wrist section of your pattern. The next bit we're going to look at is the palm and thumb section, and all we do is turn the pattern round, lay it onto your other piece of pattern with the two lines drawn on it, line them up and draw an outline of the thumb section pointing down from where the fingers are. And what that will give you is a pattern piece that's shaped like that. Cut that out and that becomes the inner thumb and the palm of your pattern. So what you should now have are three parts to your pattern: your outer part, your thumb and inner wrist part, and the palm section. And I've numbered these so you can see which one is which. So you've now got three parts to your pattern. Part number one is the thumb and the wrist section. Part number two is the palm section, the palm and thumb. And part number three, that's the outer, so it's the back of your hand and the back of your wrist. So these mitts come in two parts. You've got a duffle inner, which is made from your blanket, and then you've got a weatherproof outer. The first bit we're going to cut is our outer. So I've used Ventile for the back of the hand and for the thumb and the wrist. And I've then used Cordura, which is a heavy duty nylon, for the palm. I've also added a couple of extra pieces which go across the back of the knuckles and across the back of the thumb. And that's just to give the overall mitt a little bit more durability and to give you a little bit more protection. That's when you're digging it into snow using your mitt. So what we do is we place our fabric parts out onto a table. We then place our pattern on the top of it, pin it in place. So onto my Ventile, I'm going to put piece number one, thumb and wrist, and piece number three, the bit that covers the back of our hand and the back of our wrist. That will go onto my Ventile. I will then cut that out. With that done, I'll then take piece number two, palm and thumb, cut out two of those on my Cordura this time. But what I'm also going to do is use that same pattern to make a little covering just for the back of the finger. So it's just the upper part of that piece of pattern will go on. I'll cut those bits out and that will form the protection for the back of the fingers and knuckles. With those bits cut out, first thing I'm going to do is make up the back of the hand complete. So I'm going to stitch my little fingertip protection pieces onto the Ventile. So I'm just going to roll the edge of those over, sew them down, and then stitch it onto the actual front of the hand section. With that done, I'm then going to put in my wrist strap. And if you place your hand onto the top of your piece of fabric, and just look to see where your wrist is, and about an inch above that, that's where you're going to pin your strap section. Once that's pinned in place, you can stitch the whole lot together. For your next bit, you're going to stitch the palm section and the thumb and wrist section together. And these you place together with the outer fabrics touching against each other. Pin it in place just around the thumb shape. So it'll be from that line that sweeps up and around the thumb, pin that in place and sew along that line. With that done, what we do is then lay your two bits together, so the back of the hand and the palm of the hand, open up the palm and wrist bit, fold it back on itself, and you should have two bits that are roughly the same shape. With that done, turn those back to back on each other, pin it together and stitch it around the outside, and that should be your mitt almost complete. If you then reach inside and turn it back inside out, it should give you your glove shape. It's not completely finished because we still need to think about the draw cord at the wrist section, but that is it, pretty much done. It's actually that simple. Obviously you need to do one for each hand, so just repeat on the other side. Our next job is going to be to make the duffle inner, and for that you're going to use your wool blanket. So you repeat the process again, you lay your wool out onto the table, and your pattern you're going to need to make it a little bit smaller, so draw a little line about 1/2 inch from the edge all the way around all the pieces of your pattern, and then trim that 1/2 inch off all the way around. Pin that to your wool blanket, cut it out, and then again stitch it all together in exactly the same way, and that will give you your duffle inner. Now, to finish mine off slightly better, what I did was next to my main line of stitching, I then did a zigzag stitch all the way round, tie it up against that line, and then trimmed it off fairly close to it. And what that does is that prevents it from fraying out so much. The seams on the inner mitt I leave on the outside because that's going to be covered by my outer mitt. It also means I haven't got the rough seams against my fingers on the inside, so it makes for a more comfortable mitt. So that's the mitt, outer and inner complete. You can see I've got my adjustable wrist strap, I've got my little draw cord at the base, I've got my reinforced fingertip and knuckle area. Turning it over, I've got my palm, I've got my thumb section, and then I've got my little cuff area down here as well. And as I said, that can all be closed off with a little draw cord and a cord lock on the bottom. It also has this little loop, and that little loop is there so I can put a cord through it and attach the two together, which can either be worn around my neck or it can be threaded through the sleeves of my jacket so that I can't drop my mitts or lose my mitts because they're actually attached to me. So there's my inner mitt. As you can see, I've left the seams all on the outside, and these, they look a bit like another mitt, and they can be used in that way because they're wool. I can use these for handling hot stuff around the fire. It helps me stop burning my hands. So this is the finished article, and these ones I've used quite a bit, and they're a really good bit of kit. They've got the cord on them which connects them, which means I can take my gloves off and they hang just there where I need them. If I need to put my gloves back on, they're there and they're good to go, and that way I don't lose my mitts. These are a really good practical item, especially when the weather is really cold. Mitts have a lot of advantages in really cold weather over gloves, because your fingers are all together. It helps to keep the hands that little bit warmer. I use these as part of a system with a very thin inner glove inside, and then if I need the extra warmth I can add the duffel liners. If I just need that little bit of extra protection from the wind, then I can put the shell on over my thin inner gloves without the duffel liners, and it still helps to keep my hands toasty warm. When I stop and I start to cool down, that's when the duffel liners go back on and the shells go on over the top of those. It's quite a quick, easy sewing project to do. Once you've got all the bits and pieces together, the actual making time you can do probably in about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So it's a nice simple project, and you get a really good usable bit of kit at the end of it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you found it useful. I hope also it inspires you to have a go at making your own little bits of kit, because as I've said in the past, there's nothing better than using a piece of kit that you've actually designed and made yourself. If you have liked the video, then remember, hit that like button, share it to your friends as well. If you think you know some people who could do with learning how to make these, then tell them about it, share the video. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Remember, you can always pop over to our Etsy shop, which is Greencraft Shop, where you'll find various bits and pieces that I've made. You can also pick up the Greencraft patch. Why not show your support for the channel? Purchase one of these either for your smock or your rucksack. Quite a few people have. So don't be last in the queue. You will find other bits and pieces on there that I've made too, including quite possibly a set of these will be coming up in the next couple of days. I've been Neil, and until next time, stay safe.